to your world. Oh, there we go. Audio for everybody now. Sorry. Welcome back to the Worlds by Design podcast. I'm your host, GT Junkie. We're getting started a little bit late today. We had to deal with a disembodied voice infesting one of the local slimes. So we have a fourth slime on stream today. We're going to be talking about flora and adding plants and trees to your world and how to make even your vegetation interesting. And you have to excuse my voice. I'm still recovering from that. So I guess to start it off is, there's a lot of good reasons to have flora added into your world aside from just, oh, look, we have trees. Just about everything that societies do is based on the plants, and just about everything your animals do is ultimately based on the plants. So adding a rich variety of plant life to your world can really make it come alive. And there's a lot of different categories for those. Some of the ones we're more familiar with are perhaps for, especially in modern society, are for lumber and paper and food, and maybe even some medicines. But there's a really broad variety of uses for plants, and so that's kind of where we're going to go with this show today. So, welcome everybody. How are y'all doing?
Doing pretty well. It is very happy to be here.
Doing well.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just need to point this out. Somebody's mouse clicks are extremely loud.
It's the angry mouse.
Is it the angry mouse clicks?
No, that was mine. I forgot that my mic was like right in front of my mouse. Is this better?
Yes.
Hey, welcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And welcome back to
It was
How
like
You Doing?
it was like it's louder than normal, so I just wanted to check.
That would be why, because my microphone was like a solid 2 inches from my mouse.
Angry mouse.
Angry mouse, exactly.
Angry mouse.
Alright.
So, I guess maybe to kick off is let's look at some of the categories of plants, and kind of how they're generally useful, and then we can get into them a little bit deeper. Without getting, and we're not going to get technical, right? Like, we're not going to break down all of our plant species into different.
We're not botanists here.
I'm not a botanist. I don't make any claim to be.
Also, if there are any botanists in the chat, please feel free to
please
speak up.
Yeah, please speak
correct
up,
us
but
if we
also
make mistakes.
yeah.
And we're sorry ahead of time for any mistakes we do make.
So, with your plant species, now you have, on one end you have fungi, which are pretty much everywhere, and that includes everything from mushrooms to mycelium. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens there. And then above that, you'll have your grasses, which can include everything from
I would say the mosses and lichens come before the grasses.
Yeah, I
okay,
think so.
well,
Because
mosses
they're
and lichens.
also very simplistic life forms, but very useful.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And molds kind of fall in there somewhere. Because slime molds are really crazy interesting. And then you have, as you're getting on up, you go into your bushes and shrubs, into your more stemmy wooded plants. Of course, you have flowers in there somewhere just above grasses, I suppose. And then you're going to get into your smaller trees and onwards. Another good classification is how they propagate seed-bearing plants versus cross-pollinators as a means of reproduction, because they get spread around the world in different ways. And then they're also used for different things, for different food sources. A lot of medicines can be made from crushed flowers or crushed plants, and a lot of food can be taken from fruits. So there's a broad, very wide variety of uses that we
And the
can get
medicines
into.
from molds as well.
Oh yeah, penicillin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 10 million horny teens that are grateful for penicillin.
That's true.
So Where do you think is a good place to get started in adding plants to your world? Where do you like to start?
For me, I tend to start with the biggest plants. So that tends to be your trees, your large flowers, things that you're going to notice right away. Because part of like when I'm thinking about world building is I am considering setting up a scene. I'm considering kind of the environment that I'm creating. Or or also a
Shrubberies.
lack, yeah, a lack of plants in some areas. For instance, if I was making a to like a polar region, I might only have a few sparse rocks with lichens on it or mosses, whereas or like maybe in a more savanna area I have mostly grass but a few trees. So I'm really kind of thinking of like what are the plants I'm going to notice first as I come into this environment. And
Interestingly
yep.
enough, there you said something in both times. There is that you referenced the temperature first before you reference the plants, right? So it's worth thinking about like how hot or how cold or how humid or is it a desert, for example?
Yeah, but that's what I typically do first. And I ask, where am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for my world. My world is weird with its biomes, so it's. I just have to ask, what region of the world am I in? What is actually like here? Like, obviously, I'm not gonna have redwood trees the in the middle of the tundra. Although
Right.
that would be so
Although,
cool.
yeah, I mean, but you could. The thing is, like, you could have
You
something
could.
maybe like a redwood,
You know
and
what I
then
mean.
yeah, but no, but then you can explore why are they there, what has set these apart that they can flourish in this area, or maybe they're not flourishing. Maybe having this be a polar or tundra region is a new thing for
Yeah.
some reason, and now these are the last remaining redwoods.
Right.
Like, and then you also have to you also have to deal with like other factors that might influence what type of plants you can actually have in the area if you are using those limitations.
Mhm.
Right.
So yeah, so basically anything like if you hear us talking about like some guideline that we use, feel free to break it, and that you can come up with some really interesting reasons as to why that's
Oh.
as to why.
Now I am
I-
tempted to
I-
put
I
redwoods
can
in,
actually-
in the ice biome now.
I can actually
That
give
sounds
you
cool.
a really good example of that. On Flagstone in the southern Pakrani Desert. Hell, I even got a map.
Fancy.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I came with things to show today. What's up? What's with that? I can just get my head together. Wrong map.
I have some very fun plants in my world, but that is a result of weirdness with the biomes. But I'm curious to see what you did.
I'm curious for World Amble to speed up.
Fair.
Okay, so this is not the best map I've ever done of this, but for the time being, it's what I've got. This area south of the Pakrani Desert was a ancient seabed that got raised up during a geological event, and so it became a desert all of a sudden. But there's still water that runs underneath, and there's coming from the Zabanal. So this entire environment is some mix of aquatic and desert. You can imagine it more like the canyony deserts like Afghanistan, where water is just channeled, just carve these rivers through it. So the plant life there is going to be a mix of like coral and seagrasses and the more aquatic toned things, and probably a lot of things. And obviously, it's a fantasy world, so a lot of things that don't normally exist. So we get to get pretty fantastic with it by mimicking ocean plants on land and how they would maybe have to evolve a little bit to survive in that environment.
And I guess that actually also brings up another thing is that your plants do not have to be terrestrial. You can also have marine and aquatic plants.
Or plants that fly.
Yeah.
That too.
Or fungi, because I like that word.
Really?
Really.
Yes.
I like the word fungi, and I'll die on that hill. I'm okay with that.
Yep. Yep.
Yina mentions in the another way I often come up with plants, animals, and such is by asking the question, what problem do the people in this area have, and is it caused by a particular plant or solved by one?
You know, that's pretty cool because I can tell you from experience that if you just try to build, say, just the biome straight away, you're gonna get lost, right? Either you'll get stumped and you won't be able to think of anything, or you'll just get lost in the details. A lot of times, it's really good to have a general kind of idea, like you were saying earlier, like this is a savanna, temperate woodland, jungle, what have you, and then yeah, you can ask things like, well, if you have some other content already generated for the area, you can reverse engineer from there, um,
Yeah.
for sure. And no, the reason I keep coming back to the fungus and or fungi is that they have a lot of really neat adaptations that aren't taken advantage of enough. Like, you know, the little poof ball uh, fungi where they poof and it launches their spores up into the air. I mean, you could make
Yeah.
an entire environment out of that.
Oh,
Oh,
easily.
to go back to something you did say earlier, because you were talking about molds as well. Molds, and I did a little bit of digging on that one. Molds are actually another type of fungus.
Right.
Okay. I kind of that makes sense.
Yeah.
I say, remember the initial disclaimer?
I was curious, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. That molds are type of fungi. Okay.
Also, like, so one thing, so I do particularly like my mosses and lichens is thinking about how like this, especially if you want to get into more sci-fi or realms, is how might you terraform a region, or how might an area that was once devoid of life start to have life in it? So one kind of more unique thing about lichens and mosses is that they do need water, but they don't need soil. So or if they do, they need very, very minimal. So they can live like in these crevices, and they can live on like bare rocks, where typically things like would not otherwise be able to live. And then as they and kind of their life cycle, as they mature, reproduce, die, then they start to actually create that soil layer that other plants need in order to take root.
That's also how we get molds and
Yeah.
funguses inside our house.
Mhm.
It's they
Don't
don't need
remind
soil.
me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did not mean to
No.
dredge up bad memories.
Oh no, no. Mold is not fun to deal with.
No.
Let's just say that.
No.
So I lived in Florida during the floods of the '90s, and
Ooh.
yeah, the mold down there was insane.
We just had an apartment flood. That's all that was.
The whole
Nothing
area
serious.
flooded like 3 times, like every
Ugh.
2 years. Like it was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But
Um,
I think a good way, the way I tend to make like if I'm making multiple plants for an area, right? I think of what's the temperature. Here's the first question: are there even plants here?
Right.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's yes, but
that's
sometimes
would always be
no.
the first question for
Yeah.
anything.
Like, are there
Does this
plants?
exist?
Yeah, does this need to exist? The second question is what temperature, like what's the general temperature like? And then I have like 4 things that I at least need to fill out. I need to have a wood thing, so I need to have like a tree. I need to have some sort of bush, shrub or bush. We need gotta have the shrubbery in there, right? I need to have a flower, and I want to have an herb of some sort that works as a like for food. So something food based.
it's actually really nice too that you can scratch any one of those things on your list there, and it makes the environment that much more of a challenge. Say like,
Mhm.
what happens if you don't have access to wood, which is not uncommon around the world.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that'll affect how your people build their
everything,
dwellings and whatnot.
everything.
Mhm.
Everything. Yeah, everything.
One interesting thing to consider that how plants play into all of this is that if an environment does not have access to a plant, that becomes a valuable commodity.
Mhm.
Always, right? Because scarcity drives up value. But
You can think of this like in the spice trade, so where a lot of plants that would not have grown very readily in, like in Western and Northern Europe, became or just in Europe in general, but grew abundantly in Asia. There is a huge, they're very valuable to be able to transport those
It's why
plants.
saffron is still incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also historically is why people it's either watermelon or pineapple. They just rent them out for as like table.
pineapples historically.
Pineapple?
Pineapples.
Okay, thank you. I don't remember which one it was.
The one plant that eats you as you eat it.
now,
For the viewers, can you please elaborate on that one?
There's an enzyme in pineapples that is a digestive enzyme that, as you eat a pineapple, it's released and it tries to digest you.
And that is why I can't eat pineapple. It tastes awful to me.
oh, it's so good. I love it.
I love my pineapples.
Mhm.
I actually
And
had
that
pineapple, I
slight
had
burn
pineapple
you
for
get,
dinner.
yeah, that slight burn you get from eating a pineapple is the pineapple trying to eat you too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I might say, if you really push that to the limit and just have a plant with teeth, like as fantasy.
So we do.
Just make a pineapple with teeth. That's fine.
Then
Okay.
we would have a pineapple version of the Audrey too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna that's what I was
exactly.
getting to. We have Audrey.
Or the Marlboro from Final Fantasy.
The what?
The Marlboro from Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or
Yeah, but those
are
Marlboro,
really
or whatever it's
big.
called.
Then you got your poisonous plants. And...
You can also get to backtrack just a little bit. You can
Yeah,
also
sorry.
get to instead of just thinking about like what does a particular plant in the environment offer the people, you can also think, well, what are the people willing to do to improve the environment so that it's suitable for a plant? And that's a different way of looking at the question, but that involves, if you want to grow wheat, you have to clear fields. That means you have deforestation. So logging companies and all this stuff would be involved, or plowing the land and all of this crazy stuff. If you look at rice, then you're having to build these large terraces so that they can have the kind of aquatic environment that they need, and you have the issue of collecting that much water. Cranberry
Cranberry bogs.
yeah. There's any number of environments like that that are just, where humans have modified the environment so that they could grow the crop there.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong. What booze?
Yeah, so it's also worth asking, well, like, did they get their hands on a plant from somewhere else and transplant it, and what did they have to do to maintain that? Because you can't really, realistically, you can't grow everything everywhere.
Right.
You're not going to grow sugar cane in London. It's just not going to happen.
Someone probably will try.
Somebody has tried.
They'll call it global warming, but I mean, you're not gonna do
5 druids have to conduct a daily ritual to make sure the exotic tree doesn't die.
Right. So, it won't grow. Even if you do get it to grow there, it won't grow as well as it does down in Jamaica or down in Trinidad.
Well, clearly that's just the druid slacking off.
I know, right? No, I think. Well, anyway, we're not going to go down that road. So, man, now I lost my train of thought. Thanks.
Sorry. Sorry.
Train of thought derailed. No survivors.
No survivors. Oh, okay. So when we're talking about like what are people willing to do to modify the environment, to make it easier to grow or harvest that particular crop. Is it even something that they're able to tame like that? Because you can't really tame every plant the same way.
Yeah, you can't tame kudzu at all.
Right. You just kill it.
A good example of that is well, taming a plant. Cough, cough, raspberries. Cough, cough. They grow rampant.
Not just raspberry. Well, not just raspberries. We have tamed a lot of plants, and we have gotten that. Like, so one thing I always or that I like bringing up is I like when I hear people complain about like something like a genetically modified food. We have genetically modified all of our food. We haven't necessarily done it the same way, but for instance, our wheat is heavily genetically modified because we've decided that there's this one part that we like, and we're going to make it like. And also with corn is another great example. Is like we're wild corn looks nothing like corn on the cob that you buy.
And bananas are an example.
You know,
and the artificial. Well, the now artificial banana flavor, it comes from a species of banana
that
that's
doesn't
extinct.
exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is why it tastes so weird. And honestly not great.
I prefer artificial banana over real ones.
I don't really like either, but I like real bananas over.
Yeah, I don't particularly like bananas either.
Yeah.
I ate way too many of them in high school.
But yes, also it's like you don't really need advanced technology to to have people genetically modify their food,
right?
To make it especially more palatable to them, to emphasize the characteristics that they particularly find tasty.
Well, I mean, you just selective breeding.
Create seedless varieties like watermelons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so how far you go with that really depends in the context of world building, depends on how advanced your society is. But selective breeding just on intuition would still have a noticeable effect over time. Mm-hmm. Like even if your guy was just like, oh, I like the way that this wheat tastes, and so I planted more of it. And,
that's how you. If you want to start fights with food, that's how you start an actual food fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The same thing happens with animals. Mm-hmm. You breed in characteristics that you want, and then you wind up with something that looks nothing like they started.
This is how we got a wolf to look like a chihuahua.
And that's how we got pugs with like squished faces and they can't breathe.
Yeah.
Damn, y'all, animals are next week.
I was going to give a disclaimer on that. Yeah, it's a teaser.
All right, next week on Worlds by Design, pugs with squished faces.
I may have to leave notes for Darkness there because I don't know what my schedule is next week yet.
That's right.
This is how we shrunk a tree into a bonsai. There we go.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually,
careful trimming.
I actually knew an old couple that used to run a bonsai shop down in Florida, and I've watched her tend her plants and very meticulous work. But yeah, she would get these little. They had miniaturized versions of pretty much everything you wanted, like little miniature cypress trees and things. It was crazy.
That's adorable.
And they were some of the greatest people ever.
Yeah, they were really cool folks.
Can I quickly touch on something here?
Sure.
Of course.
That is related, I swear.
Did the stream just freeze? Did the stream just freeze? Did the stream freeze?
Possibly.
Okay. Sorry guys, we had a little technical glitch there. It looked like everybody got kicked out of Streamlabs. Yina, can you hear everybody? Okay, I guess.
Hello.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to get a mic check as we go. Okay. Looks like everyone's coming in though.
That's weird.
I don't.
Yeah, I hear everybody. I had to switch over to stream.
Okay, cool. All right. So sorry about that small technical hiccup. Thank you, Alo.
It wouldn't be a stream without them.
Oh, I know, right? Thank God for post editing. If only we had an editor. All right. So back to the plants. So now the environment that you're world building in can be, really heavily dependent upon a lot of things. But
Darkness, not muted in Discord.
Okay, that better.
Yes, much.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, he was muted in mine, so I wasn't hearing it.
Oh, you.
Well, when everybody's dropped out, I
Yeah.
unmuted
I got
Discord
you. I
and
know.
get everybody back up.
Yeah.
Anyway, train
Not
of
me
thought
admitting to
derailed.
keeping my husband muted.
I'm not gonna question it.
We're
I
trying.
do the same
We're
thing to
trying to
mine.
keep this show at least PG-13. You know, like.
Honey, we've been doing this for 20 years. You're used to me by now, or you should be.
Fair. Okay.
Plants.
So, yeah,
Plants, yes, plants.
Now, what you'll find is every culture will make use of the plants in their environment, but in different ways. If you live in a heavily forested area, certain kinds of agriculture just are not practical. So you end up doing a lot more foraging. You would end up relying a lot more on native tubers and berries and roots and things like that. So just thinking about like what kind of plants your indigenous people would need that they live on, what kind of things that they eat, even trying to imagine different fruits, all of these things can lead you back to how to create new and interesting plants. Now there's some really great examples of fantastic plants in pop culture. One I've always loved is the Whomping Willow.
Yes, I love
Oh
the Whomping
yes.
Willow.
I mean, you know, who doesn't like the idea of a tree tentacle monster that likes to smash things? I think
Well,
that's just great.
It's not just the Whomping Willow. You brought this up. You opened this door. There are in that world there are tons of plants. The mandrake root for one.
Mm-hmm.
Devil's Snare is another good
Devil's
one.
Snare is another one.
You
There
can go.
is-
You can keep
I
going.
apologize about if you hear any noise in the background.
I was about to ask.
There's an ice cream truck that drives through my community every single day,
It's the ice cream
Oh,
man.
and that is the ice
Can't
cream
you hear
truck.
the music?
We have an ice cream creeper van.
Right.
What? I am okay. We're talking about this later. Plants.
Yes, I will make a note for the ice cream creeper van. But yes, back to the Whomping Willow,
trying.
the Devil's Snare, the mandrake root,
You can
the
keep
cabbages,
going.
and
Yeah.
all sorts of the plants that are very specific to that world, that environment.
Well, that also covered a wide range of environments too, which was pretty interesting because
Yeah, it did.
they actually gave a lot of thought about plants in each environment. I love the one they did for I forget which movie it was in the series or which book, with the underwater tournament.
Oh,
Oh,
before-
it's the
Before.
yeah. I believe that's fourth.
Goblet of Fire. It's
Right, right. So there was the plants they needed in order to be able to breathe.
the gillyweed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm horrible with names. So
Just look at like just look. Can I be complete? Just look at a potions class. Like,
Right.
Well, you know, and that's a one that's actually very often overlooked. In fact, if you go and you look through D&D's material, there's really not a lot for herbs and things in their material. It was a very
Right, 'cause-
largely overlooked.
Right, and those potions in D&D and in the other environments and whatnot, they're not just, most of them are not just flora based, but they're also not fauna based either. You know, you have to incorporate both.
Mhm.
You
I'm
have to know what works together.
I was just gonna point
Yeah.
out something that I found. I just looked up on the wiki. There are 103 different articles that are linked just under plants for Harry Potter.
Right, and yes, you know, you're
And
absolutely
some of
correct.
those are
Crafting is
categories.
overlooked in general.
That's
Oh,
absolutely true because the game started off as a kick in the door, kill the monster, take the treasure. But players have decided over the last 50 years or so that that's been a thing. that they like, you know, some players like a little more of the crafting stuff and some people like a little more of the social stuff, and there's plenty of room for everybody at the table.
Yeah, now if you want the kick in the door, kill the monster, steal the treasure, you've got Munchkin.
Well, even like you can have a ttrpg where you kick in the door, kill the monster, steal the treasure, collect the herbs, go back to town, sell the loot, brew your potions, rest up, party, go back out on adventure,
true.
right? Like there's
Rinse, repeat.
That's the adventurer's life. Followed, you know, somewhere in there, there's periods of starvation and, you know, moments of certainty of near death. But, you know,
Starving artist.
yeah, right, exactly. Suffer for your
Which
art.
murder is an art, so don't. So it is definitely a starving artist.
What? This is fascinating. This is...
Sometimes you just roll with it.
Right?
Yep.
No questions asked, just roll.
Oh, I like that. I don't care what the monster is. I'm skinning it and yoinking all the horns, teeth, and claws.
God, I know, right?
Right?
Oh
and
my
and don't
God.
forget the meat, because the meat could have multiple uses. It's either going to be
That's
good
next
to
week.
eat or
Next
yeah.
we're doing Flora this week. God damn it.
Teaser for next week.
But yeah,
And
another,
that's-
another
I-
thing.
You almost
getting-
can't touch on. You can't talk about Flora with touching
Yeah.
up on a little
I
bit.
realized we probably should have done this as like one mega episode. It's a bit longer.
Getting us back to the plants.
Plants.
Back to plants.
Another thing to think of is not just necessarily how plants are useful to people, but how plants are an obstacle to people.
True.
For instance,
That's
one of the most, I guess, stereotypical ideas of a plant being an obstacle might be like a wall of brambles that's very difficult to pass because it's full of thorns.
Poison
Oh,
ivy.
I was thinking poison. Yeah, I was just thinking
Yeah.
poison ivy.
Poison ivy in the real world, but like if we want to go fantasy, you also have your wall
Hey,
of brambles.
there's
Poison ivy also
absolutely
exceeds fantasy.
look, I
Hey,
tell you
did
what.
that wall of thorns fantastic.
Some like sumac or some poison oak in a fantasy world would be an amazing win for the GM. Right, as the adventurers push through the brush and nobody bothers to look at the plants, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna hack our way through, and it goes like just getting covered in poison oak or poison sumac.
Sudden you start itching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, start getting negatives on all the rolls in combat. Perfect. I
Because
love
you
it.
can't stop scratching to effectively fight.
And then you make them walk through the brambles, so they're all cut up a little bit too, you know.
That's kind of horrible. Good idea, but...
Depends on how sadistic your DM is.
Exactly.
Well, to get to the lever that unlocks the door, you have to swim through the vat of alcohol. That's the.
Oh, wait, no. It's all fun and games until you chop through the bramble vine and it starts screaming.
Right.
Has anyone... I'm going to pose this question to hopefully keep us talking about plants. Has anyone made some fun plants for a fantasy setting?
So one of my favorite plants that I've created is called a hanging plum. It's a nice little bluish plum, and it is edible. First off, it's considered a delicacy mostly by the orcs and by the people who live around them. Notably, though, it is poisonous to humans, dwarves, elves. Not like if you eat it in small doses, it's you're just gonna feel nauseated and you might vomit. But in large quantities, it will kill you. It is loosely based off of the very real air potato, which
What
does
potato?
An air potato. This is a thing. Allegedly, it is the variety that grows in Florida is slightly poisonous. Again, it's edible if you really, really need to eat it, but otherwise, please don't.
Fair.
This is fascinating.
Um.
And yes, the name is actually called an air potato. Like that.
It is called an air potato. Confirmed.
But it also has medicinal uses as well. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that it just so happens the variety that grows where I live in Florida is slightly poisonous. So I decided that I wanted to incorporate that in my world of like plants that might be fine with one group with since I have getting slightly off topic, but I've got multiple sapient species in my world with different biologies. So plants that are okay with one of them are not okay with another sapient species.
Right.
Sort of like how chocolate is fine for humans but poisonous to dogs.
Fair enough.
Same with grapes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of plants that are like that. Milkweed's one of those. Yuna says, fire lilies, a flowery bush native to the plane of fire with highly volatile seeds. If harvested incorrectly or struck, the seeds detonate, often causing a chain reaction on other nearby lilies. Once harvested, however, individual seeds are used as primers for firearm ammunition.
That's awesome.
I like
nice.
that.
That's dope. I like that.
Seal of approval.
No, I haven't gotten down into the specific plants too much on Flagstone yet. We've been busy with other things. We do have some kind of broad concepts for some of them, with some generalized plant life kind of fleshed out. We're not into the details with it yet. Although there's some that I'm really kind of interested to see come out in, like I said, that southern Pakrani desert, particularly with, you know how plants in the corals will pop in and pop out as things pass around. So that kind of environment where the flower, you know, maybe they react as people walk by. Which is kind of creepy, because then your cover can disappear in an instant.
Oh, that's much nicer than what I have for a plant like that. Just follows you. Just.
Well, I mean, I always think it's cool that, you know, when not everything is actively trying to kill you, maybe it just kills you by accident.
Not like tiptoeing to follow you, just like slowly like turning. Like how sunflowers turn to face the sun, it just slowly faces towards you.
Yeah, another fun one for for that, it would be the mimosa, which is sometimes called like the sensitive plant, where if you touch the leaves, they close up.
Now, one often overlooked area is flowers. Flowers get used for a lot of teas and medicines and things. They also get used for perfumes and dyes. So just as a short aside, let's not neglect the flowers. And then also along the same lines are nuts. Don't neglect your nuts. So
That was the cutest sentence I heard today.
Well done.
You're welcome.
That's one doctor's recommendation.
So, well, you know, like if you just think on
I
Earth,
can't sometimes.
you have acorns, walnuts, hazelnuts, peanuts. I mean, you know, all sorts. Although peanuts are a little bit of a different story because
Peanuts are not nuts.
they're not nuts. They're legumes.
They're legumes. Yes, they are.
Shouldn't-
But they have
it's
1,000 uses.
True.
Yeah. We're not having this conversation yet.
I grew up in South Alabama, where all of the uses for peanuts were discovered and whatnot. So yeah, I could have an hour-long discussion on peanuts alone.
Can that be like a Patreon thing if we ever set up a just a 30-minute?
$5 an hour to hear Bama talk about nuts.
Let us know in the comments if you're in the chat if you would like that.
Now, are we talking the nuts you eat or the one I married?
Oh my god.
Gambler's choice on that one.
No,
Or dealer's choice.
I can't say much because he has put up with me for 20 years. So I think I'm worse.
That the Kangas Foundation is that is smart. You know.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which,
Can I
actually,
yeah.
that's a really good point. Food allergies. There's a lot of people that have food allergies to particular spices or particular pollens or particular nuts.
If you can think of a plant somebody's probably allergic to it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or the weird one, or some of the more off the wall ones. Like my 16-year-old is allergic to the meat of olives, but we can use olive oil all day long.
Huh.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I have
It's
like
my kid.
weird...
I'm not surprised.
I mean, that's one way to put it.
I can't eat things with a lot of paprika or
What do you want?
like I'm pretty sure I have that gene, where everything like cilantro tastes like soap.
Yes.
Oh,
that
I'm
is,
so
that's
sorry.
A very, yep, I have that gene too.
It's yeah,
I am so sorry.
but most greens also greens all just taste like soap.
To me, the only thing that
Okay.
really tastes like
Actually-
soap
Yeah.
is like green bell peppers. Green bell
Actually,
peppers taste like soap to
Look,
me.
so what you're tasting is this waxy film that's on them.
Oh, yeah.
Try slow roasting them over open flame, just for a little bit, and it'll melt the waxy taste off, and then
That's
We might have to
true
try that
for
next time.
vegetables like the peppers, but for cilantro,
But for,
it's
like-
not. There's an actual gene
Yeah.
that does that.
like if you're talking
That's a
about
genetic
like
thing.
yeah, and I also can't eat like, and then I have another thing where I can't eat paprika or things that have like a what is that? I can't do cloves either because they just taste awful to me.
Oh, you poor deprived child.
next
I
time
don't-
on Plants in Your Food,
Yeah, I
almonds
mean, it's
taste
still-
like
it's still-
arsenic.
Tastes like almonds.
Yeah,
So I actually have a mint allergy.
really?
Oh wow.
Yes,
Interesting.
I'm allergic to mint, which comes in the lovely situation of buying toothpaste or anything like.
I was just about to say that.
Is extremely difficult because of how ubiquitous mint and the flavor of mint is in our world, especially here in the United States. It's very difficult to find anything like dental related that is not mint flavored.
Mhm.
Yeah. Outside of
also-
like charcoal that does mainly cosmetic stuff, not
Yeah.
actual.
Yeah.
So that's
Dental
another thing.
care.
Like when you have either individuals or groups of people. Another one of like is
Lactose intolerance.
Oh, that's an animal, and we're gonna put
Oh,
celiac disease.
There you go.
That's the one.
All the
Where you
gluten
have populations
intolerance.
but especially here in America, we have wheat everywhere.
Right.
It's in so many things. A lot of things you wouldn't even think of would have gluten.
As somebody who has family members who are gluten free, like not from celiacs, but who are gluten free, it's so weird how many things have gluten in them
Yeah.
that you would not think have gluten in them.
Well, we have a grocery store here that actually has an entire gluten-free section,
That
That
I,
which
just
a
sounds
lot of grocery
useful.
stores don't have.
Yeah.
I don't even pay attention to what gluten is. It's just something I eat. Like, no. It's whatever.
Yeah, it's good to know. Like,
Does it? Yeah. It's just never. I don't have any food allergies, so I've been blessed that way.
Yeah,
Lucky.
it's just a protein
Well-
intolerance, basically what it is.
So
Because gluten is just a type of protein.
Yep.
So talking about foods and allergies, it's a nice little segue into foods and poisons, or plants and poisons. Now, one thing I want to
Nightshade.
point out is that poison or toxicity is typically a matter of dosage, right? Anything in large enough quantities will kill you.
what's that number? There's a number for that. There's like a classification for that. Give me a second.
What if how much things want to kill you?
No, there's like a number or like a classification to use how much of something.
So he
is.
said LD50.
Thank you. That's what it is.
Right. There you go. So, but now the really interesting thing about plants is that they combine with other chemical, extracted plant chemicals will combine readily with other extracted natural minerals and chemicals, and you can end up with some really crazy stuff like medicine, from the very things that would poison you if you ate them.
Or you can be trying to make like a perfume and accidentally end up with tear gas. Somebody did that on YouTube.
Yes.
Whoops.
Hmm.
Whoopsies.
Or you can try to, go to clean your bathroom and accidentally create, nerve gas.
Yeah.
My
But
grandmother did that once.
Ooh.
Okay, I was like
I'm
trying to
sorry.
figure out the
Yeah,
no.
I knew there was a story attached to that one.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's the story there?
Windex and bleach.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That was I was a
Ouchies.
kid at the time, and yeah.
Ooh.
um,
Yeah, so
Long
things
story
like
short,
that.
There's a lot of ways you can try to kill things, and also yourself. But
Yep.
please don't. Please do not. We do not.
Don't
endorse
try
that.
anything stupid.
right. This is not a incitement to poison anyone. This is
This
talking
is not
about
a how-to. This is not a tutorial.
this is talking about poisons in the context
This
of
is the
plants and
acknowledgement that
world
poison
building.
exists.
Yes.
Well, look,
This is a
look.
cautionary tale.
All disclaimers aside, like Jesus, like, I don't. I better stop before I say something. Oh, that's called restraint live on air, folks. Yep. Okay. Plants and poisons, because in most medieval societies, poison was a particularly valid way of settling political disputes. Right? It always has been a way of dealing with your political rivals in particular, or angry wives dealing with their husbands. Because
Historically, hasn't poison typically been used by women
Wh-
over men?
women and politicians,
Yep.
historically.
Look how many like politicians and people of royalty where it's allegedly died of this, but also possibly was poisoned.
Catherine de Medici.
Yep.
Now there's once you start getting into the process of how to extract those chemicals out of your plants, then you're really getting into either herbalism or alchemy or chemistry. And we can have another.
That is a whole conversation.
That's
That is an entire conversation.
That's an entire conversation. But one of the interesting things there is that particularly every part of a plant is typically useful in some way. Even if all you're doing is crushing it up and using it for pulp. In fact, all of your paper is crushed up, just wood pulp, or you can use rice or bamboo or there's several other plants fibers that can do that, flax and
Yeah.
a couple of reeds. But yes, I mean, even stripping the fibers out of the plants for making string or sackcloth kind of stuff is very common. But for poisons, a lot of times it'll be particularly berries and flowers, or where you're going to find most of your poisons, or seeds, because seeds tend to be highly concentrated for whatever. Like apple seeds, I think, have arsenic.
Yeah.
Cyanide.
Cyanide. Excuse me, cyanide.
And cherry pits are also another one that comes to mind with that.
Yes.
Now, as a side note to plants, and this is kind of the area where we have to talk about plants and animals at the same time too, is how do your plants reproduce, and what are their, like, if it's a pollinator, what pollinates them? Is it a bee, or is it like something horrifying? You know.
Something horrifying.
Horrifying, yeah.
Well,
It could be.
I get that, because sometimes some seeds lie dormant until a catastrophic event such as a fire.
Oh, I was thinking more that there was like.
I was thinking like a
monster that.
Yes, that's what I was saying. That's where I was going.
Well, I could imagine, let's say, a 10-foot tall spider with fur, slow hairs at the tips of his legs, that when he brushes up against plants, it catches a bit of pollen, and so as he moves around, he's cross-pollinating plants. It's not as effective as, say, what bees do, but it would do
If
some.
you're in a densely populated.
Also,
Or like
still
or
horrifying.
like the coffee beans from divots.
Right, exactly. Get eaten and pooped out.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna go into detail. I figured most people already kind of knew. As soon
Look,
as you say coffee beans,
seeds
that's one that comes to mind.
seeds are distributed by animals who eat them and poop them out, people. If you did not know this, all seeds or most seeds were at one time coming straight out of a bird's behind. Okay? So this is
Or just got dropped along the way.
or just got dropped along the way, right? That's just how it works.
Yeah, I was also a very good example of this. Is and a good way to make this a nuisance if you really want to be mean to if you want to have this to your world. Tumbleweeds.
Right? Sure.
They purposefully starve themselves and just get carried off into the wind. Disperse the seeds, and just so happens to be that when you have a bunch of those tumbleweeds in an area, maybe like, I don't know, shortly outside of a village, yeah, no, you can't leave after that.
Right. So
And also, I also quickly want to add is that like, as far as like kind of slightly terrifying, horrifying ways that plants will pollinate, is you also have the relationship between the fig and the fig wasp, and basically, so the figs rely on the fig wasps in order to reproduce. They also kind of digest the wasp corpses. It's a pretty gruesome thing as far as weird. Both they're not exactly parasitic, but it's
It's weird.
it's a weird relationship between the two of them.
well, it's not really a symbiosis per se because one of them has to
it's kind
die.
of it falls into this very strange, but they do work together.
It's kind of like the fungus that infects wasps and takes over their brain.
We are not talking about cordyceps.
Yep. I'm sorry, I've been watching a lot of Pokemon videos lately, and I just thought of Parasect when you said that. I'm sorry.
Well,
for anybody who wants some ideas to what the cordyceps fungus does, please just look at The Last of Us.
Just please just look it up. In all honesty.
Yeah, we're not going to post pictures of cordyceps here.
Nope.
So now that actually brings up another point: is that plants may not be sapient always.
Yeah, you told me to look it up. I did.
That was your mistake.
No, that's your fault.
Yeah, but yeah, sorry, Darkness. You're saying plants are not always sapient or sentient.
But they do act for their own benefit, right? Like so, they're interesting as creatures because they're not necessarily malevolent. They're not necessarily intentionally out to kill you, but you may just be triggering the things that make them think you're food. So
like Venus flytraps, like messing with that.
Right, exactly.
Please don't mess with the Venus flytraps. It does actually take quite a bit of energy for them to do the whole like.
Yeah, please don't do that.
You may be hurting the Venus flytrap if you do that, so please
don't. This is can we like secondary title? I was about to say, can we secondary title this as like the episode of PSS?
But I could also imagine things like if it was a tree that would consume animals, which there are those, maybe it lays a tendril out like a snare, and then whenever the animals like triggers it does basically reacts just like a Venus flytrap would, except it snags the animal and slings it around, smashes it a time or two, and then eats it. Or wraps it up and crushes it.
One of my favorite, this isn't an animal, but one of my favorite plants that creates some very interesting ideas from a world building perspective is the strangler fig. What the strangler fig does is it seeds land somewhere in the branches of another tree, and it will start grow. It'll start growing. It well, first off, it'll get its primary nutrient source from the tree, and then it starts growing down so it can put in its own roots. But as it's doing that, it'll keep growing and it'll constrict and steal nutrients from the host tree, eventually killing it. And given enough time, it will simply become this hollowed out web of just a strangler fig that can support itself, and the hollowed out space is where the host tree used to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're a type of ficus. They're very, very cool.
I do want to propose
This one I do
something.
recommend looking up because it is very cool to see the strangler
Yeah.
fig.
Yeah,
I was about to
it's
say, I
very
would like
cool
to propose
pictures.
something if we would like to do this, since I distinctly remember us leaving off with the World by Design world, doing work with plants.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not? Is that correct? Or did we finish
That is. I don't think. Let me check. I don't know how far.
I think we were like about. I think we were about to write about a war that was started by plants, or by the oak barrels. The barrels. That's what we were doing.
I remember the oak
We had a
barrel
whole
war.
comedy situation going on over there. So.
Well, we were going to do the article for a snowberry.
Do you want to do that?
And how
for the
they
last
stored
bit?
them.
Yeah, that was the whole, because it was like a snowberry wine. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, well, they were stored in metal barrels or wooden barrels or something.
Wood,
Or
yeah,
oak
no.
versus another type of wood.
Yeah, I was just making sure that we didn't actually already have an article for it. No, we had the frost war. Vardvog is the name of the territory.
Yep.
And we had reference to the snowberry, but we really didn't. All we said was it's the rare snowberry. Okay.
Yep.
I was just trying to get back to where we were on that.
No worries.
Yeah, we can definitely do. Do we have a plant here? We have a species. That's probably gonna be the best place for it.
We really should work on this more.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I don't like doing it so much live on stream normally is because I end up like long dead times while I'm just typing away.
That's fair.
We have the I have another setup for doing writing with friends, where I do like little time sprints for 10 minutes or something like that. Okay, let's see. So we got snowberry. So this is getting a little bit of a back.
Also somewhat related, so I have a very particular fondness for cashews as a plant. Namely in that, so as far as like the usefulness of different parts of plants, the cashew nut, extremely edible, also very one of the more expensive nuts that you can buy. The fruit can actually then be broken down and fermented and turned into an alcohol, which is local to in India, where the cashews natively grow. So that's kind of another example of like different parts of the plant can have different uses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and part of why like the cashew fruit is turned into to alcohol is because it's considered a byproduct of the cashew nuts, which is infinitely more valuable than the fruit itself.
Mhm.
So there is kind of that history there. So like when you can export the nut, but you're still left with the leftovers, people will generally find a way to. And I realize it's called an apple. It's not like the fruit and body is called it, which is for me a little bit weird to think about.
Mhm.
But yes, there is the alcohol particularly in the state of Goa. I believe it's called Feni is the alcoholic beverage.
Mhm.
And then the nut can be further processed into nut oil.
Yeah, it's yep.
So not only do you have just the raw product, but also what subsequent products can be made from some part of it. Another example would be, for instance, we get apple pies from apples, and it's like so that would be, but you have to slice them up, you process them even further to get an apple pie, or anything like soy milk, cashew milk, wheat milk, any of these like milk alternatives again is another further product, more refined product from the raw material.
But I could talk about a plant that I have in my world because
Please do.
that's interesting. Trying to fill dead space is fun. In my world, it's very interesting because I decided for some reason that I'm going to make plants for all, like at least one plant for each of my planes of existence. That can't be found anywhere else. And I have a plane of existence that is glass, just all glass. So I made a glass rose that will hurt you if you touch it at all, because it's literal glass shards that happen to be in the vague shape of a rose.
See, but that sounds gorgeous. I mean, like I wouldn't pick it up, but just aesthetically, that is very pretty.
Yeah, and then I have another one because I do have a plane of like cloth and fabric, which is interesting. Haven't figured out the plant for that one, but I think it's going to be like a tree, like a cloth tree.
Something else we haven't really touched in is cultural meanings behind plants. So this is particularly prevalent in the Victorian era and still somewhat today that you have different flowers of all sorts of different meanings. And the kinds of flowers that you give to people, you can send secretive messages that way. But even
and different colors.
Yep,
Within
different. I was about to say roses are a really good example of that.
Yes.
And I believe daisies. There's another flower that also has a good example of that.
But also, but even in other traditions that may not necessarily have the Victorian style of the meaning of flowers, is that or like where you can send very complex messages that way. But even just the idea of like flowers may be or plants may be auspicious, and you can consider this, for instance, lilies are frequently associated with death in some cultures. Or another one is they're also associated with Easter, which is part of how they get that. Yeah, which is how they get the death association.
Well, it's also how they get the name the Easter lily.
Yeah,
is a particular type. But calla lilies have become more recently associated with weddings, just because of their elegant shape and whatnot.
I also go for it.
A lot of it is not the type of flower so much, unless you've got baby's breath and forget me nots and whatnot that have specific meanings. But it's mainly the color.
Mm-hmm.
I also will say that there's another thing of having meaning, not you also have metaphorical meaning and then also just straight up physical meaning. Fireweed up here tells time.
Right.
It tells you when the first snow hits.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the same thing is down in Florida. There is a plant they call the spider lily. It's small, red, and typically when you see one, it indicates the first frost is on its way.
No, don't remind me the fact that all of our fireweed in our backyard has fully bloomed, and it's just a ticking time bomb now. Like, wait, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna post a photo in the server that I took. On a drive, and it is the definition of impending doom. Up here, we'll just post it in general. But it's the definition of just it's getting closer.
Right.
So, and it's just you're just kind of waiting for when the first snow is going to hit. But fireweed is very useful to figure that out. But it didn't really happen this year because we had a really late winter last year. But
Right.
we had like 4 feet of snow on the ground in April. I felt so bad. But yeah, I can think of other plants like that.
Okay.
You could also probably pull up a website.
So there's the brief. It needs more, but that's a good place to start because I think that catches everything we had talked about before.
The stream's delayed, so I'm waiting for the.
Stream's delayed.
Because if you're watching it on the stream, it's delayed by a bit.
Like 3 seconds or something.
Yeah.
So for those who listen to this later and are not watching, it says the snowberry grows in the wintry lands of Vardevog, an icy wonderland of massive glaciers and endless tundras. Plant life outside of some hardy shrubs or tough evergreens is particularly rare throughout much of the region. However, the continent itself rests above an ancient magma chamber, causing mineral springs to form with lush plant life around their humid warmth. Among the most prized of these plants is the snowberry. Snowberries are a strange variety of berry, difficult to grow and harvest. If picked too early, then when eaten, the fruit causes vicious frostbite in the consumer's mouth and throat, occasionally even leading to death. However, once ripened, it has a unique flavor that is adored as the basis for local wine and other delicacies. Is that additions, thoughts? Hello?
No, I like it.
Oh.
Sorry. I just got the email to say that I got accepted into the college I want to go to.
Congrats.
Next year.
Congratulations. Right on.
Yeah. Yay.
Good
That's
deal.
amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Right on. So what are you going to study? Or do you know?
Special education.
Oh, right on.
Nice.
Oh,
Excellent.
bless you. Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to do a minor in Tlingit, which is a native language up here.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
It's like taking a minor in like Spanish or Chinese, but it's Tlingit, and it'll be extremely useful if you're teaching in Alaska.
Fair
Yes.
enough. Right.
Yay. Okay. I'll deal with that later.
Okay. Well, Cammy, any thoughts?
No, I heard it. It's good.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So short, sweet, to the point. It doesn't always have to be a long entry. We already had some supporting entries in other parts of the world building for this. So we can do something just like add it to the geographic distribution to Vardvog, which is where it's grown at, and then at some point we can always come back in and fill in some of the other stuff if we want. And now we got
Yeah, the prompts are really great if you are not quite sure how to flesh out or expand your articles. They are definitely not necessary though.
a lot of times they're too much information.
Yeah.
If you're planning on doing a detailed world for public consumption, I would highly recommend that you pick and choose which of those you're going to use. You know, you can always give the one-off exception, but you should have a general rule.
I'd
Because
say especially if you're planning your world for public consumption, shorter is usually better. People do not like to read.
it's unfortunate but true. Actually, I would say I think if you had the information in a book as opposed to on the web, you'd get better readership. Because people do read differently in books than they do on web browsers.
Yeah.
But on a web browser, absolutely short, sweet, and to the point. You're lucky if you can get their attention for 5 seconds. If you have the other stuff, it might even make sense to like try to put it into a hidden block that they have to expand out if they want to see it. But that's a whole nother level of world amble that we're not getting into today.
Yeah. Very quickly to kind of add on, getting back to the plants, I do want to mention there's a very good documentary by David Attenborough. It's getting a little bit old at this point. I believe it was released a long time ago. I don't exactly remember when. Maybe like in the apparently like in the 1990s. Like I said, this thing is old. It's called The Private Life of Plants. It was put on by the BBC. It is definitely worth watching. It especially as an introduction to plants and all of the just cool things plants do and how plants survive.
Oh yeah, there's
I
some
think I've watched it.
there's some cool. So I don't know if it was covered in that documentary or not, but there's some like plants use there's a chemical signaling that goes out when you're cutting grass, which is kind of that fresh grass cut smell.
The grass is crying.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's essentially screaming. And other plants in the region will start to act defensively. In fact, I think they made a B-flick sci-fi horror film based on that concept.
Yeah, I think I've
The one
seen
that's
that.
not Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
No, there's one where it's like the apocalypse is caused because of this, like because Mother Nature wanted to take over because
Yeah.
of all the destruction,
Yeah.
and it turned into killer plants.
Exactly. Yeah, so plants don't have to be boring. There's a whole lot that you can do with them. Even a lot of stuff that we haven't covered in great detail. Everything from perfumes to dyes to soaps to food products to you name it. The level of detail that you want to go into in your world is really highly dependent upon what it is that you're doing. If you're doing world building for, say, a campaign setting in a ttrpg, you might also want to consider the rule set that your system's designed to work with, or your campaign setting's designed to work with. Not all games put the same degree of focus on plant life, or what you can do with it. So know what you're building your world for. I guess is the point there.
Yeah, and like specifically for TTRPGs, you can also think of plants as like a plot device. You know, whether, for instance, you could make an entire quest out of trying to obtain this one particular rare plant.
Athamas.
Yeah.
Right.
So certainly they can. You can use them as hooks. You can use them like as obstacles, as MacGuffins. You can, going back to like that B movie where Mother Nature is taking over and get killer plants. You can certainly make them as enemies and monsters to fight.
Right. You could also make them as the miracle cure. Even something as simple as a plant that's particularly nutritious, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily all that exciting, but it can be amazing just in what it is. There's a couple of them There's Bama, what was the? Do you remember what the name of that one tree was?
In what?
It's a South African tree that basically you can use pretty much every.
Oh, moringa.
Moringa. Yeah, thank you. I was drawing a blank on the name. But that
The ultimate superfood.
yeah, like super nutrient dense, right? You could survive just on eating it, pretty much, right? And it grows like silly, crazy.
You can currently get moringa powder in Walmart
Right? Yeah.
You can also
if
think
you
about,
want to give it a shot.
yeah. I'm also kind of thinking you have invasive plants. You can put plants where they don't belong.
hmm
And that can cause some massive problems to the environment, but it can also create a lot of opportunities for people that can come up with creative solutions to how to deal with this new
Like
invasive
going
plant.
back to the kudzu that was mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Right. You also have plants as housing for animals.
Yes.
An often overlooked thing, but you're going to have rodents and birds and what have you that are going to build their nests or make their homes inside of trees
Or underneath them.
or around certain types of coral or in in the grasses. They'll use it for camouflage or for food. Exactly. There's a reason.
Which that does kind of touch on the underwater flora as
Mhm.
well.
Exactly. And then it's also
That could be a bonus episode. His
Yes.
underwater flora.
right.
Yeah, because most people when they think of flora, they think of topside.
Well, and even whenever they're thinking of in the ocean, they're not thinking of algae blooms.
Yeah.
No. They're thinking of like the seaweed, the kelp, the anemones, the coral.
Yeah,
Coral's
Although
coral is
corals,
more of an animal.
yeah, that is more of an animal,
right.
which a lot of people don't know that either.
Yes. Yes. This is your fun fact for today. Coral is an animal.
Right. You also have, and you've seen this in various worlds like Pandora in Avatar, where the plants have this signaling network between each other, so they kind of have a not a hive mind, but a connected consciousness.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, you can just go for the aesthetic. Like, just some plants can just look really cool in your environments. And yes, you can later justify why they're there, how and what they do. But if you're looking at it more like artistically, or if you just want to set the scene, make your plants as gorgeous as you would like.
Phosphorescence.
right. Oh,
Make them glow.
here's a fun fact. I don't know if you guys knew this, but plants, especially flowering plants, will broadcast different colors to insects based on what light patterns that insect can see. Basically, they're broadcasting in different spectrums. So they'll be given a green light to one type of bug and a red light to another, or no light to another. So your plants can even kind of signal to your creatures, and you can take that from anywhere from subtle to overt. Like you could have the plant that like maybe flips its leaves over and cups them upside down whenever it rains, because there is a tree that kind of does that in Florida.
I'm blanking on the species. There's a particular kind of spider which, to people, looks very brown, and it likes to sit on flowers. This particular spider loves to eat insects that happen to visit these flowers. To us, it seems like absolutely dead obvious. Why would these insects keep coming to this flower that has a spider sitting on it? We can see the spider. It turns out that for the insects and through and how the spider looks in ultraviolet, it is almost like it blends in almost perfectly with the flower.
Almost invisible.
Yes, it is basically invisible on the flower. So that's why the insects keep jumping there or keep coming to it, because they don't know the spider is there.
Right.
But we can see the spider. So yeah, what the the visible light spectrums that your animals and insects can see in. It does make a difference.
Right. And you can go as deep and far down these rabbit holes as you want to go. Right. And
Yes,
take your
hummingbirds
readers on the journey with you.
Yeah, I realize this is kind of mixing animals and plants, but hummingbirds, as far as symbiotic relationships, and they are basically forcing each other to keep evolving longer and longer beaks and insert beaks that go in particular directions because of flowers.
I mean, you can get down at the level of worms and roots,
Hmm.
right? And all of that can be a thing. Like it's just a matter of how deep down that rabbit hole you want to go. I would recommend that you kind of know your limits and don't write anything that you don't need to write. I know that sounds like bad to tell writers, hey, don't write more than you need to, but when you get into world building, you always have to be mindful of world builder's disease and getting carried away and running down a rabbit hole. And there's two problems with that. The first is that it will consume all of your time and all of your thought, and then the second is that it doesn't leave your reader any room to have any imagination of their own. So be sure to leave your reader room to imagine something that you haven't already written. Okay, well, it's definitely been a fun show. Any last high points, guys?
Plants are cool.
Yeah,
Plants are
Yeah,
cool.
plants are cool.
Plants, anything wacky you can think of, a plant has probably done it.
Probably. Probably. All right, guys. All right, well, we look forward to catch you next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about fauna, since we did flora this week. And then the week after that, we're going to be getting into the sapient species, so creatures that are self-aware. And we look forward to having you with us. So we'll catch you all next time. Bye.
Have a great week.
Yeah.
Have a great night.